You're listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.
Welcome to the festive Mammal Watching podcast with me, John Hall in New York City.
And me, Charles Foley in Minneapolis. Merry Christmas, John. Slightly early Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
How are you? What are you up to?
I'm good, Charles. Looking forward to a very, very quiet Christmas here in New York, in between Madagascar and Equatorial Guinea. And how about you? What are you doing?
So I'm heading to Spain to see my family and spend about 10 days over there or so. Try and find a few mammal species. There's some badgers close to my parents' house and various small species, some of the small rodents and voles, etc., which I have yet to see over there. And there's also ibex close by. So I'll hopefully get at least a few mammals under my belt.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And I'll probably get on Christmas morning would be fantastic. Yeah.
Well, that would be good. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'll probably mostly just get a lot of food and drink under my belt, which will expand considerably by the time I'm back.
Yeah. It's the place to do it, Spain. Yeah. Well, have a wonderful holiday.
And you too.
And I'll be talking to you over Christmas to record another one of these, I know.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Well, welcome everyone. Today, Charles and I are joined by Mac Hunter, who you remember from the very first podcast, who still has the most downloads of anyone, much to my annoyance, Mac. Cheryl Antonucci, who you'll also remember from one of the early podcasts, veterinarian and primate watcher extraordinaire, and also Carlos Bocos, who many of you will know from his trip reports, especially from Papua. He's been seeing some very, very cool mammals, and I'm excited that I'll be Charles and I are excited that we're hoping to travel with him next year on a trip. But the conversation we want to have today is about guides, using guides, working with guides, what it's like to be a guide, the importance of guides for conservation. These are all topics we talked about at the Mammal Watching meeting in Spain. We thought it was time to have a podcast on this. Welcome, Cheryl, Mac, and Carlos.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so using guides. We all know that this is often a personal choice. Some people don't actually like using guides much. They prefer to go to a place and find the animals by themselves. So what are your feelings about this? And what do you see as the main benefits to using guides? Cheryl, do you want to start us off with this?
I would love to start with this. I completely understand people having that thrill of finding things by themselves. It is exciting, even when you're with a group or a small group or just you and a guide. When you find it, you just get that feeling of elation. But there's so many different reasons that I think guides are important. Not only from, I know we're going to talk a little bit later about just the conservation benefits of employing people in other countries to help protect animals, but for someone like me as an American, one thing that the Americans have is they don't like giving people vacation. You're lucky if you get 2 weeks. I am fortunate in my part of my career that I am not a salaried worker, so I just work and then I'm paid. So I'm able to take pretty frequent vacations, but I cannot take, I see people going, I went for 24 days, or I went for 3 months, or I packed up a car and left for a year. Like with what I do for a living, that would be pretty much difficult to next to impossible. So it's nice for me, number one, to find someone that I can trust in different areas. That's a guide that I can find different species that I'm targeting, that they're going to help me find that. I think about all the cars in my life that have broken down, all the tires that have blown, all the planes that I've missed, all the hotels that have lost my reservation, all the places that only speak local dialects. All that can be very stressful on a vacation. And most of the vacations I take are not relaxing. I'm going to try to find certain things. And having a guide to me is just completely beneficial to get all those things to act as smoothly as possible. I was trying to think of recent things that I've had, and I could go on a lot, but I'm just going to use one example. Everyone that has worked with Mike Gordon, who works in Borneo, the Malaysian side, mainly in Sabah, particularly in Duramakot, but in other areas of Sabah as well. He's known as the person to try to find some of the harder species, especially things like clouded leopard or marbled cat. But he also does other things as well I went to Borneo, the Sabah portion, about 13 years ago, not so much on a listing trip, but I really wanted to see a Sabah gray langur, or a grizzled langur as it's called, and I dipped the first time. So when Fiona Reed, also a wonderful guide, was organizing a trip, I told her, I'm in if we can really at least spend a little bit of time trying to find this one primate that I dipped on so horribly the first time that I went. She contacted Mike. He didn't know me. He didn't know who I was. And he put the extra effort. He had found a location in Duramakot where he had seen the species with Mark Spence a couple of years ago. So he made time during our stay at Duramakot to go there. He also, when we went to Taban, he made a point to talk to all the guides, drivers. You see this monkey, you call us. You tell us when you see it. And because of the fact that he put into that extra effort, I got my Sabah gray langur.
Mac, what about you? What are your impressions on this?
Well, in round numbers, I would say about half my trips have been with guides and half without guides, and I see pros and cons to both. These are real sort of shoot from the hip statistics. I would say on average, I see twice as many species on a trip with a guide. That's obviously huge, especially if I'm targeting bats or elusive forest creatures that are hard to spot, et cetera. You definitely do way better if you're traveling with a guide. On the flip side of that, I would say that those species that I've seen on my own, I get twice as much thrill out of having done it on my own. And I could illustrate that with a pair of anecdotes. My first tiger was seen in the bad old days of staking out a buffalo calf and going along and seeing a tiger in a very controlled stakeout situation. I mean, it was enjoyable. I was glad I did it. But 3 years later, when I was out traveling on elephant back doing a rhino census and found my own tiger, that was way more enjoyable than the more canned experience before. That tiger is really seared in my memory. So there's something, if it's like a lot of things, if it's too easy, it's the thrill isn't nearly as great. So to me, it's a wash. Twice as many species, half as much enjoyment per species, perhaps.
Interesting way of looking at it. Yeah. Carlos, you of course are a guide. I'm assuming you're in favor of guides. Can you tell us your perspective?
To be honest, I enjoy very much local guides, and some of them have incredible knowledge, just incredible knowledge. I mean, it's amazing the number of things they can point out or they can show you. And yeah, I have in mind a number of them, even some that like Hari Yono from Sumatra, from White Canvas.
Yeah,
that I think some of you know, and he's just such an incredible guy. He's fun to be with. It's very keen. It's very eager. He's always, ready to look for whatever you want to see. I mean, doesn't matter if you want to see birds, doesn't matter if you want to see mammals, doesn't matter if you want to see snakes. And I feel very grateful to spend time with some guys that I have in mind. And I learned so much from them, really. I learned so much from them. Like some of the guys I work with in West Papua, they have incredible knowledge, just incredible knowledge. I mean, I can't stop learning from them. So I think my experience it's very good. Yeah, it's very good. But it doesn't happen in every place. Yeah, not in every place I work. I have very knowledgeable people or very interested people. Yeah,
the amount you can learn and then apply in other places is amazing. So this whole idea now of, I think, most subterranean rodents, the way, the gophers and the tukus and things, naked mole rats, the way to find them is to partially excavate the burrow and up they pop now. I can't remember where I first learned that, but it was in one continent, and I've been doing it in all the others to great effect ever since. But there's just an anecdote I got in Australia when I was talking to some of the guys, and some of the scientists there took a trip across the Simpson Desert a long time ago, and no one knew how to navigate the desert. So, and a lot of the tribes and the indigenous people had been evacuated when they were doing the nuclear tests. So they found a couple of elderly indigenous ladies who'd grown up there, and they took them along as guides to navigate the tracks. And these were scientists. I think it was the Queensland Museum. I'm being a bit loose with the facts here. Anyway, every night these guys would go out with their Elliott trap, their live mammal traps, and dig in pitfalls. And every morning they caught nothing, the scientists. And apparently the sort of ladies came up one morning and just asked them what they were doing, and they explained, and they're all right. And they walked off with their digging sticks, and half an hour later they came back with bags full of mammals they just found. So there's so much we can learn by just spending time with local people, and guiding is obviously a great way to do that.
I think the very same thing happened in Sulawesi, for example. You go there with your Sherman traps or with your tomahawk traps, and you catch nothing. And then locals, just with bamboo traps or stick traps or anything, they just catch the very, very best stuff. And that's something that we can only learn from them. And even if they are not guides, I think we can make them be guides if this thing keeps growing, yeah? Because I feel like this is booming, really. I mean, I know it's small compared to birds, but I feel like this is really booming. And I hope some people I know become guides in some future, yeah, and maybe stop trapping or stop hunting, because they don't need sell anything in the market to get income for their homes, for their families, because they get enough income from us, yeah, from mammal watchers like us. So,
yeah, I think that's one of the things around the world, that the poachers are almost always the ones who make the best guides, because they know how to find the animals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They know so much. They know incredible things that they aren't in the books, and I don't think they will ever be. Yeah.
John, do you mostly use guides? What's your sort of breakdown of guide to non-guide on your trips?
I mean, nearly always. Like Cheryl said, there's a sort of cash-rich, time-poor element to trips. If I had years, I might not use them quite so often to take a trip, like some people do. I wouldn't use one in New York or somewhere, but generally, yes, but for all the reasons we've talked about. I also enjoy, when a good guide is great company, and you have this shared mission and the happiness to see them sharing in your joy, and often being even more excited than I am sometimes to see things we're looking for. I just love that, and it's such a connection. Yeah, but I think that, we've talked about the conservation thing is important. I know that's something that Cheryl cares about, is passionate about the conservation of primates in particular. Is that one of the reasons you use guides, Cheryl?
Yeah, I was listening to what you guys were just saying, and I agree that poachers and hunters make the best guides. I mean, they really know, and taking them away from that and putting them towards guiding and finding animals for people to shoot with a camera instead of with a gun is super important to me. I was talking to John about this the other day. I remember being in the Republic of the Congo and getting ready to go track lowland gorillas. And it was a father and a son. The father was probably maybe in his 50s, and the son was young. And he was talking to our group about how he was a hunter and he was a poacher. And pre-doing all that, it wouldn't have even fazed him to kill a gorilla. And he had eaten plenty of primates. And he said after he started guiding and started seeing how things are with that and seeing the benefits financially, he said, I haven't eaten a primate since. And, that was something that was very important to me. And I remember just even being younger and using like rhino poaching as an example. And people were always like, you're never going to be able to save any wildlife until you save the people first. So I think that the little piece of conservation that wildlife enthusiasts can use is pretty important. And I think going and using these resources without helping the locals benefit it's just a shame because they're never going to want to save the things. They're going to want to always do what's the easier thing. Look at what happened in Madagascar. I know you just got back from there, as well as a lot of people. I was looking at the numbers, and it was saying about the amount of money that tourism was bringing into Madagascar pre-COVID. The guides and the local guides being in all these parks and these preserved areas, and then COVID strikes, and all these jobs are lost. So then you get people going out of the major cities, going into the forest, and they were just talking about the number of lemurs that were being killed, as well as other animals. Not just, obviously I'm a primate watcher first. So you take away the incentive to have people have jobs in areas what I consider to be areas of concern, and I think that's a huge problem. I completely understand like wanting to find things on yourself and looking at things by yourself. When I go to Australia or I do things in the United States, I think I've once used a guide in Australia, and that was on Bruny Island. It is fun to go look for things, but we're with areas where people that are living in either, just horrific poverty, like in Madagascar, or in what we would consider to be poverty in the United States. I think employing people to go and do these things is super important. I think they're the ones that when we leave and we've ticked it off of our little list and taken our pictures and share them to social media, they're the ones that are going to be helping to save that animal. And let's make that animal worth something to them alive and not dead. None of us do our jobs for free. So we all have our jobs. So let's not expect them to have a resource and not want to benefit from it when it's so easy to say that they should, as I'm sitting here, in my house.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, this will probably get edited out, but I don't like using poacher and hunter as synonyms. And it's not just that my name is Hunter. there is a distinction.
Yeah.
And I would note that, when one goes and travels in a third world country, and there have been times when I've not paid for a guide, but I've still bought food, bought accommodation, had a driver, and so you end up spending a lot of bringing a lot of money into the economy, and they know why you're there to see wildlife. So it isn't always necessarily linked to the hiring of a guide, and we could talk about importing guides versus local guides too. I always use local guides.
But I just feel like those local guides are in the forest. They see things, they monitor things versus someone that's driving a car or is at a stand selling, soda or things like that. So I like the fact, and this is again, most of the stuff that I like to go see, like the primates, unfortunately, they don't live in the best places, and they're high species of interest for hunting and eating in certain places. And it's nice to me to know, and this is again talking to different people that have been in areas. Think about woolly monkeys in the neotropics. Supposedly they're delicious, and a lot of people like to eat them. And you get to areas like either areas that have lodges or areas that are guided, and as soon as they start, protecting these species and stop people from coming in and eating them, and just watch and report each other, and you start seeing these megafauna come back in. So that's important to me. So.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
So, Mac, you've hired lots of guides on your various trips. Tell us some of your best guiding experiences and also some of your worst.
Honestly, I only had one really notable bad guiding experience, and you, of course, were very much part of it. We were in Amos National Park in Brazil and spent 4 days there looking for maned wolves and other things. And we had a guide who we assumed he would at least be able to translate for us, but he didn't speak a word of English. We sort of hovered somewhere in Spanish and Portuguese for 4 days. And during those 4 days, literally the only time that he uttered the name of a species that he spotted was when he started screaming, "Lobos, lobos, lobos," when Maine wolf went across the road, and ironically, he was the last person in the vehicle. We all had our binoculars on the thing, and were enjoying it before he even saw it and started screaming its out its name. But that so I believe it was Charles who gave him the sobriquet Darwin.
That was Professor David Wilkove, actually.
Oh, okay.
But we won't drop him in it.
Anyway, but he was unique, and fortunately, in my guiding experience, I've never had anyone quite like that at all. And in terms of the best guiding experiences, there have been a few dozen of them that were fantastic. The one who comes to mind is one of the most memorable, and it harkens back to some of what you were saying about local people who really know the forest. Was a guy named Sandro from Bolivia, who grew up in a hunter-gatherer community, 8 hours walk from the nearest road, and that was him and his lifestyle was hunting macaws and monkeys to feed his family, until a group of biologists came to the village doing some sort of survey, and he started interacting with them. One thing led to another. Fast forward quite a few years later, and he has learned Spanish, he's learned English, and he's traveling all over Bolivia as a guide for foreigners, and knows hundreds of species names, and is just a fabulous person. He's still, interestingly, even though he's very much part of the modern world, flying around Bolivia with an iPod and binoculars and scope and all these things, he still spends most of the year back in his village, and living some equivalent of his traditional lifestyle. So, an amazing person, and what a privilege it was to spend 2 weeks traveling around Bolivia and seeing it through his eyes.
What do you think makes for a really good guide? For you, do you think it's the ability to find the animals you're looking for, or is it more about the logistics, the communication with the guests, the trip management?
I think it's a bit of everything, yeah. Not only the ability to find mega species, but also communication skills, the ability to have a good time any given moment, even in a very miserable moment, with horrible weather, in a terrible place, staying in a terrible accommodation. I think it's a mix of everything, honestly. Because at some point, especially when the trips are long, when the trips are 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I think everybody wants to have a good time. You can feel the people is tired already. You feel the weight of the 3 weeks, 25 days, 26 days, something like that. So at some point, no one really bothers with one species we are missing. With short trips, I think it's different. I think the very best tour last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's the limit, and 4 weeks, which is the longest trip I guide, I think it's a little bit too much. Too much. I finished very, very tired, really. I want to hear what you think about guides. I'm very curious about it.
I mean, I think for me, just picking up on what you said, is I think absolutely the communications and the finding species, you can't have one without the other. You can have a guide who's a great communicator, but if he doesn't find you anything, then that will lead to, on my part, an irritation. But perhaps even worse is the guide who spots something and then can't explain where it is. And that is absolutely maddening. Like, where is it? It's there. Where? In the tree. You're looking at the forest. Which tree? The green tree. How far is it? 10 meters? No, 1,000 meters. I don't know. And then it's gone. I remember incidents like that, and it's no, really. I'd rather we didn't know about that in the first place. So yes.
Well, I know in the safari business in Africa, the best guides or the guides that get the best reviews from the clients tend to be the ones who just very amiable and easy to chat with and keep the clients entertained and occupied, etc. Rather than being the ones who can sit down and tell you all the information about a certain species or even generally find a species. But then again, it's easier to find a lion or an elephant in a place like Tanzania than it is to find a Javan rhino or a orangutan or something like that. So it will be.
Right. And the people going on those sorts of trips have a certain shallowness of interest too, that is probably lends themselves to wanting to be entertained rather than have bats and rats identified for them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I like being entertained. I like having a good time. I like all the laughter and the banter, and at the end of the day, feeling like that guide is someone that I would be at least friendly or friends with. But yeah, seeing the animals also super important. And like you said, getting everybody on it. Had that in the green tree right there, right in front of you. I've had that happen to me or on trips. So I think a nice combination of, someone that puts in the effort. And I've had even guides that are more like your tour group that finds even the best local guides in all the different parks using Madagascar, my last experience, that we saw pretty much everything that we wanted to in all the parks that we wanted to, because he made it a point to streamline our experience with the people that he knew would do the best jobs. So it's kind of like a combination of his personality versus him finding the locals that knew where all the species were.
My last major trip was to Madagascar, and I had exactly the same experience. The regular guide, the person who was with us through the whole trip, had excellent English and was very amiable and great at organizing things, but he was really pretty mediocre as a naturalist. But the trip was successful because he got the local people who knew the species and where to find them, et cetera, were sort of subcontractors, if you will. So that actually worked out quite well.
I mean, one of the things I think that people don't often realize is just how hard guiding is. I mean, if you are the main guide on a trip, it's exhausting because typically you have to be the first up, you're the last one to bed, and everybody's problems land on your plate. And let's face it, people are paying lots of money and they're putting the pressure on you to find the animals. So how do you typically deal with clients who are really high strung and who are giving you a bit of a hard time to try and find the animals?
I put extra effort in them. Yeah, I spend longer time with them because we are a group, and if there is somebody giving bad vibes to the group, the first week is all right. The second week you can feel the issues between participants, which is something that I don't like. So yeah, I try to make the trip as smooth as possible. Yeah, so we all have a good time. I know there is people more demanding. I know there is people more easygoing, more laid back, and I also want to have a good time. Yeah, I also want to have a good memory of the trip. Yeah, I don't want to go back home thinking, oh man, this job. Yeah, no, I want to enjoy. Yeah, because I actually enjoy what I'm doing. Yeah, so I do my best to have a nice trip, a fun trip, and well, we are all different. So yeah, I try to quickly analyze everybody and see who is taking longer to get on the thing, who is quicker, with whom I have to spend longer time, giving more exact direction, something. So yeah, I don't know. I like very much my job. I like very much my job. Yeah, it's a very good job.
That's good to hear. Yeah,
It is.
so let me ask you this, like, $1 million question. It's like, when you actually find a client, their target animal, be that the mammal or a bird, etc., what's your feeling? Do you just like absolutely sharing that excitement, or is it just saying, thank goodness I found this damn creature? And
Oh
that's
gosh, totally depends on the situation, on the bird, on the species. Yeah, totally. Even on my mood, yeah, because if I find something that I have special feelings with, and we find it, and we have amazing views, just like prolonged views, and we see it as long we want. It's just like, oh my God, we are so lucky. Really, we are so lucky. This is incredible. Yeah. But if it's something common that I used to find easily in the past, but this time is giving me a hard time. It's taking me forever to find it. When I finally find it, it's like, yeah.
breathe a sigh of relief.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there are no trips. There are no two trips the same. Yeah. I mean, every trip is different. And there is something. There is always something to struggle with. There is always something to struggle with. Yeah. You never know what will.
Well, there may not be time for this, but hearing Carlos talk about the stresses involved, perhaps of guiding a person who is high demand, remind me of a time that I was traveling with someone who will remain nameless, and we're tagging a particular species, and 5 days into the site, we still hadn't seen it, and frankly, he became quite rude and difficult to be with, starting at about day 4. And so I just can't imagine being a guide with having to deal with a client like that. Thankfully, I found the species with 30 minutes left to go before our departure. So there was enormous relief in that instance.
I know that just about every guide I've ever spoken to off the record has some horror stories about certain individuals. And I would love to ask Carlos for his, but I know he's too diplomatic to share them. But yeah, I can only imagine. It's one thing being in a group like that.
I can tell you, I had people very difficult to please. Even trying my very best, breaking my ass, just not sleeping at all, just all day long, up and down the hill, trying to find the best views, and just very difficult to please overall, yeah. But even after that, yeah, even when at the moment it was very difficult. I only remember the good things. Still, you never know. Yeah, like recently I had some people that I thought they were having, a very miserable time. And I spoke with them recently, and they were only praising me. They were only praising me. And I was thinking, like, so why you didn't praise me when we were in the mountain? Why we didn't why we didn't have a conversation about that? Yeah. Instead of, being unhappy because of the place, because of the food, because of the weather, because of the birds being very shy, because because it makes a difference for me. Yeah, when I see happy faces, when I see people having fun, it makes me happy. Yeah, it makes me feel like I keep going and going. Yeah, it makes a big difference for me.
That's an important bit of advice for all the client mammal watchers out there, is that positive feedback to their guides all along the way, not just a big thank you at the end of the trip, but positive feedback on a day-to-day basis is probably a very good thing.
I think so, because we are all far away from our comfort zone. Staying, I don't know, camping in the middle of nowhere with limited facilities, and we are looking for very difficult species to see. Yeah, for everybody, for locals, for us. So it makes a difference when you have happy faces in front of you. Yeah, whatever is happening, because trips, can go wrong for many different things. Can go wrong for the weather. Can go wrong for the logistics, because the species don't behave as expected. But what I always think is that I'm always dealing with very experienced people, very smart people that have been to so many places, have been looking for extremely difficult species. So yeah, I'm expecting understanding. Yeah, and we don't get it today. It doesn't matter. Yeah, we try tomorrow. We try the day after tomorrow. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm game. Yeah, I'm game. So yeah, it makes a big difference, Mac, for me.
And everything that he's sitting there saying is another reason why I love guides. We didn't find it today. Let's go try tomorrow. Oh, I've got this other spot. Well, let's see what else we can do. It's just that kind of attitude is just when you've got a really good guide, which I've heard nothing but wonderful things about you, Carlos. So it makes the trip that much better. And there's been plenty of trips where I've tried very hard to see my target species. And despite having wonderful guides, we don't see it. But it doesn't bad mouth them on social media or tell other people how horrible they were. It's just that makes you have to go back and try again.
I'm always surprised how many people turn it into a numbers game. And what really matters at the end of the day is how many species they ticked on a given trip or how many they've had in their lifetime. To me, it's more about quality than quantity.
I totally agree with you, Mac. I totally agree with you. Yeah. I don't care about the number. I care about the quality, really. And I think that makes the experience. Because see, one or two more species, in RAS, instead of, you finally find this, let's say this monkey, yeah, because we've been talking about monkeys, and you can spend time with them, looking at them, what they are doing, and so on. For me, that's much better. And yeah, but the numbers all over the place. Yeah, this listing.
It's a little bit of a game. I always tell people when my friends that aren't into the same thing ask me, why am I going to all these crazy places? Why are you camping? What do you mean you pulled 18 leeches off yourself the other day? What's wrong with you? It's the greatest game of Where's Waldo in the whole world. That's what I tell people. And I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, again, as I say, mainly as a primate watcher, I could sit there and just sit for hours and watch them and watch them and watch them. And I agree with you. They do the best interactions. They're the most fun. They give me the most elation to watch them. But I always I've told myself, by the time I die, I would love to be see the most primates of any person. That would be such a neat thing for me. So it's a little of the number being important, but I also enjoy, I'm not going to just look at something and go, okay, next, come here, let's go. I just saw it. I just took it off my work. I want to sit there and watch it as long as I possibly can. See it again the next day, I want to stop and watch it again.
I'll give you an example of that. I mentioned Benny, the guy who took us around Panama. We were driving through Panama City on the sort of the outskirts of the city, and we took a little turn to go down by a city park that was 2 minutes out of our way. And I said, why are we going down there? Or why are we pulling over to the side? He says, there are house sparrows in this square. And I said, house sparrows? we all know house sparrows. Everybody, he says, I know, but many of my clients want to have the largest number of species that they can report from this trip, and 5 minutes to add a house sparrow is important to them.
Right. I never do that. I never do that. No. It's all about the quality. It's not about the quantity. Yeah, I don't know. no. And especially, if I talk with you and I know what species you want to see, yeah, we just focus on that. Yeah, it's not about make a very long list. It's all about make a very good list. Yeah, and I think it's about see everything as good as possible, because we all like good views of everything. Yeah, I don't like this kind of brief views or dodgy views or something like that, and you have to believe because I'm telling you. No, I want you to realize about the small differences of two species that are very similar, and you can see, yeah, the tip of the ear is different, or the tip of the tail, or yeah, I think that's what we really want to see. Yeah.
So this has been fascinating. A very quick question for everyone. Other than being very nice to your guides and letting them know that you're happy, what else can we do to help upcoming local guides that you want to support?
I've left a lot of binoculars and bird books and mammal books behind. So oftentimes some fairly basic stuff is still in short supply. That's getting better, but that can be an issue.
Yeah, I've had people that have gone on other trips that know the guide that I'm going with along the same lines and have me bring stuff from the States down, because like you said, getting binoculars is really difficult. Getting good guidebooks is really difficult. And then obviously, word of mouth, things like John's site, talking about people, really pointing them out to other people to want to use them in the future is wonderful as well.
Another thing I've been doing more recently, especially with guides who are trying to set up their own businesses, is just trying to give them a bit of advice. Like, I'm not going to say it's business advice because I don't know how to run a business, but sort of cultural advice. A lot of the guides I've met are very worried about how much they can charge and nervous about offending people. There's all these kind of cultural things can get in the way. And simply saying, it's okay, you can ask for a deposit, and I really think you should, rather than accept someone's booking and then they cancel a month out. And you can charge a bit more. It's perfectly reasonable to charge this much. Just being there, and so they can run questions past you if there's someone you want to support. I think that kind of coaching can be really beneficial.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and I had just the opposite with some friends of mine. After COVID, they were charging so much money, like 3 or 4 times more, and I had to tell them, this is not wise, because you are not alone now. It's not like 30 years ago when you were the only guide in this part of the world. Nowadays, you have another 2 guides that they are doing a great job, and they are charging more reasonable prices.
The economics of this is kind of interesting, because the number of people who would take these sorts of trips is going to be influenced by how much it costs. And I can't tell you the number of people I've met who, when they hear that I travel all over the world, and think, how can you afford that? Because in their mind, when they see it, they assume that a trip to some foreign place is going to cost tens of thousands of dollars, and it doesn't have to. So there's some, is it better to have several hundred mammal watchers out there who can afford several $100s a day for a trip, or is it better to have thousands of mammal watchers out there who are only able to do it on a more modest budget? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think ultimately with with this, what happens is, if guys do charge a lot, other people will come up, and then the prices will go back down, and the very best guys will be able to charge a lot. Fair enough. Someone's always going to pay it. And the not so good ones, they will have to sort of drop their prices as more competition. So typical capitalist system. but it's hopefully it's enough that everyone, that a good number of people in that community or that village can make a living from it. So this guide was it a birding guide in Nigeria, a Nigerian guide, and he was in Ghana.
Yes.
And he would go home, and all his in-laws would think he was up to nefarious purposes, because no one's going to be stupid enough to pay you good amounts of money to go looking for birds. And so if they all thought he was some crook, but in fact he was just a birder. I mean,
all his in-laws were convinced he was an international criminal, because he would disappear with foreigners for 2 weeks at a time and come back with loads of foreign cash.
Kidnapping business or something. That's great. Well, Cheryl, Mac, and Carlos, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fascinating. I think really sort of giving certainly me and our listeners a really good insight into the trials and tribulations of A, being a guide, and B, using guides. So I think that as you sort of highlighted, there are so many advantages to doing that, and one of the key ones, of course, is that it just puts money back into the communities. It helps protect the animals that we're going off to try and look for, and ultimately that should be all of our goals. So thank you so much for taking time for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you very much from me too. That was great. Happy Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year, happy mammal watching.
Hey, very good.
You've been listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.